We're seeing the Ember Spirit being sort of shifted up a little bit here, and not 100% sure where it's going to go. Angel could take it into the safe lane as a carry, but technically speaking, they could be trying to revive maybe the position for Ember. That's more of a Matthew special, and obviously he is not available for NoPing, but Slayton could maybe give it a try himself if that ET is in fact going to be a core.
And this is exactly what NoPing did in their most previous series versus Hikori. They pick the Ember Spirit in the first phase, and then suddenly everybody forgets about Dark Mago's entire hero pool. I've never seen Dark Mago more disrespected. There's no Batman, there's no Kunkka ban. Tiny's on the enemy team, so I guess that's a deny pick. But you allow him to get this second phase Kunkka for the second time in a row. And what a beautiful Kunkka game it is. Of course, Kunkka versus Tidehunter memes aside is one of your persistent stuns. That's where where the Abaddon and the Tide don't care about your disable. They do care about Kunkka's disable. X Mark is just too potent of a spell, and Dark Mago gets it for free. I feel like everybody forgets that Angel ends up on this Ember Spirit. It feels like half the time they end up first phasing it, and you can't really counterpick him there. So you should at least give, I think, Dark Mago a little bit more respect, because second time Dark Mago gets Kunkka, it feels like this is exactly what NoPing want.
And we saw in that first game, even in a scenario, maybe you didn't shut him down in the lane, but you were able to slow him up a little bit with that Timber Saw. There were 2 or 3 instances where they killed him with that sort of glimpse play from the Disruptor. That still didn't matter. He picked up a Heaven's Halberd, he picked up a BKB, and he was still directly in the middle of all those fights as NoPing started turning things around. So if you let him get this Kunkka outside of just completely slaughtering him in the laning phase 3 to 4 times, he is always going to get into a position, maybe not of strength compared to some of his opponents, but at least strong enough to make contributions. So, as you said, it felt like there just wasn't really a whole lot of respect shown to him. Meanwhile, on the NoPing side, they are respecting Mr. Jeans there in that middle lane, focusing in on his pool with the Bat and the Storm taken away.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Take out the Bat, take out the Storm. You got a mid Kunkka. You don't want to give him too much speed. And unfortunately for D2 Hustlers, all of the best heroes that would be playing versus Kunkka in that mid lane are either on the no ping side or completely banned out. So now, do you want to put Mr. Jeans on this Tiny versus Dark Mago mid, or do you look for something like the Mr. Jeans Invoker that we've seen him do a few times here? I feel like they need something that's going to provide a little bit of lockdown coming from that mid lane if they do want to shift that Tiny over to the safe lane position. But I don't know. I feel like D2 Hustlers have definitely left a pretty large hole in their lineup. I think if Mr. Jeans ends up going mid on this Tiny, you need to pick some type of damage dealer that's going to provide a little bit more lockdown. I think they're lacking in so much lockdown on their team that this is definitely going to feel like a struggle to pinpoint Angel. And they do go for a hero with a natural silence, as well as able to counterpick the Kunkka just a little bit here. But this is a terrifying Death Prophet game to play, though. You're playing versus Earth Splitter, you're playing versus the Stomps, you're playing versus the Chains, and you're playing versus Kunkka's entire toolkit. Unless Monster has a good lane here, you need that front line. If this front line crumbles, Death Prophet is going to die so quickly this time around.
Yeah, Death Prophet normally a hero that's sort of known for a little bit in the way of maybe tankiness and sustainability, excuse me, but against this no ping lineup that may not necessarily be the case, and then all of a sudden you're looking at your Tidehunter and your Abba to sort of protect you and be that front line shield. So to a certain extent I understand why they pick it up, and you outlined the benefits, but there are certainly some risks that come along with it. We'll just see at this point really who ends up going where and how well that Death Prophet can play. In the meantime, NoPing.
The Saw? Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Timbersaw
It's
coming
so
out.
easy. You get Oscar Timbersaw, you get Dark Mago Kunkka. It feels like they've played this draft before, because I think they literally have. I bet if I looked it up on Open Dota, I'd see the exact same spread. But man, this has got to be a tight game from D2 Hustlers. If they do not have the perfect order of heroes, if they do not have the pecking order correctly when it comes to making those early engagements, sure, you have this Death Prophet who, again, fast forwards the game. It makes sure that those tier 1 towers go down that little bit earlier, the laning stage crumbles, and that can definitely benefit you when you're playing versus a much slower carry like the Ember Spirit, where there's not really a good tower hitter on the no ping side. But I also feel like NoPing's brawl is insane. I feel like these fights and skirmishes are going to quickly amass into those huge 5-on-5 team fights, and D2 Hustlers aren't even better at that. They've got these incredibly long cooldowns where NoPing have huge windows to punish their teammates. I think this is really going to be a game of if D2 Hustlers can control the pace, everything can go according to plan. As soon as they lose control, if they get one or two team fights and hard losses, then NoPing, they are that lineup where NoPing have a 15k gold lead at 15 minutes into the game and they just roll you. It's a very scary lineup they've been able to get.
Yeah, and I think I like the phrase you used, sort of brawl for NoPing. It looks like their lineup can just sort of stumble its way into a fight and still scramble to put something together, whereas D2 Hustlers have to be very much conscientious of their positioning, of their timing, of who goes in what, how they stack up abilities. They need a very sort of cut and dry pitched battle, whereas their opponents are just going to be able to not just throw things together ad hoc, but they need a lot less in the way of that sort of natural setup to make their game plan work.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think D2 hustlers need to be scared of, and especially once you try to get some of these tier 1 towers falling with Mr. Jeans' exorcism, that's where you picked Death Prophet into a very scary game. If you get clipped by one Echo Stomp, it's all the setup in the world. If you, let's say you miss those spells, that's where NoPing could definitely crumble. They do not have the easiest setup right now. The best thing they've got going for them is the X mark in the shackle. If you can play around those playmakers, possibly taking them off the board at the beginning of those fights, I can definitely respect it. And oh, look at this.
The
Toss
Gush,
back.
Yuba wants the toss back. They've got him underneath the tower. The slow comes in from
So
the enchant as well. They know it's coming.
They smoked
Every
him.
time.
They smoked to get him. They smoked to get him. I can't believe it.
Dark Mega. I mean, listen. Everyone knows that you're going to do that at the start of every single game. And yeah, they did smoke to get into that position, but it gets them first blood, so D2 Hustlers know what they're about. That's not going to be a massive game changer by any means, but you do strike first, you get yourself a little bit of gold, and you punish the predictability of Dark Mago there.
Yeah. I don't think they had to skill up too many spells they wouldn't have wanted otherwise either. Maybe getting the toss level 1 is a little bit annoying for Yuma, but you're going to take that. It's a little bit more gold. Unfortunately, no first blood. You would have loved to give that over to Mr. Jeans, but it'll be fine. Everything is just okay.
Nifty move from Angel there in with the sleight of fist to steal a bounty, so NoPing will get 3 of the 4.
Every time. He does that so often. Steals it with the slight bounty pickup.
Oh, it's one of those things where, personally, I am not an Ember player, but it looks so simple, but it absolutely is not on the timing. Clicking, yeah, that part's kind of easy, but actually timing it up so you can grab it away, especially since Devi, I mean, he was standing about as close to directly on top of it as he could, but Angel's going to be able to snag that one. That will at least partially make up for the death of the Kunkka, not entirely, but it's going to be useful. But now as the lane gets underway, look at Panda. That's going to be a problem for him. Gush into Enchant just keeps him in that line of fire for a while, so he needs to be careful in this lane. If he gets the Spirit up, sure, you've got plenty of damage to work with. You can try to be a little bit obnoxious, presumably onto Devi more than Monster, considering the Tide's tankiness, but got to be careful. If that double slow hits him up, then it could quickly turn around onto him.
Yeah, it's a lane that really, Enchantress versus the Ember Spirit, it's very obnoxious to deal with, as well as every single time Panda walks up, he gets double slowed, he gets forced into that awkward trade, and with the Blightstone already on Devi as well, it's impossible for him to actually play his hero like a normal Elder Titan. At the same time, Angel also has to reconsider his skill build slightly because, again, you can't get the Flame Guard versus the Enchant. You're just going to get it dispelled off, so you're probably going to see him go for the 4-4-0 build, and we've seen that from a couple Ember Spirits in this tournament, but it just means that your last hits are going to be way less. You're not going to be quite as farm-oriented.
Right now, though, he is really going at Monster here, trying to just be as obnoxious as possible. But speaking of obnoxious, Devi gets in there for the Courier Snipe. Angel will lose his. It did deliver the items first, at least, but it is still going to be a bit of a bummer for him. And the nice play from the Enchantress, who continues to just try and be obnoxious, wasn't able to prevent that pull earlier on, but you see him just continuing to sort of wander around here, get damage onto Panda, stay out of the lane as much as possible so that Monster can get mostly solo experience, and just try and set this up. I mean, Angel is... He's not doing terribly, but he's not having the lane that he wants in this scenario.
Yeah, it gets way more difficult once that impetus spam starts coming out. That's when the lane really feels awful, but again, it's something they just have to deal with. Once you have a few more points in the slight, that's where the Enchantress flips, becomes the main target, but that's where Divide really is doing a fantastic job. It's why they picked this hero. It counters both the Elder Titan and the Ember Spirit. There's not much you can do to ever get aggressive on her. At the same time, she kills all of your aggression, so it's just a perfect pick from D2 Hustlers.
Doing a lot for them in the early stage of this, early stages of this one, as Angel just trying to farm up under his tower. Meanwhile, looking across the other side of the map, Yuma on this Tiny is really not gonna worry too much up against this Timber Saw. We may see a little bit more aggression here compared to the Timber we had in the middle lane the last time around, but as of right now, Oscar has yet to really skill up that Whirling Death at all. So you would assume without the Whirling Death, they're not really going to be looking for too much in the way of aggression, but once you start getting up to level 4, level 5, once Sladen puts points into the Shackle Shot, that is where we could potentially see this turn, and Yodomi is going to have to be really sort of Johnny on the spot there with the shields, otherwise Yuma could get into some danger.
Yeah, and I think the main reason he's going for this skill build is because as soon as you get that Whirling Death out, it does just get purged off by the Aphotic Shield, and Sladen, okay, he's taking a lot of damage,
but Yuma, he's got to peel off. He was taking too much damage from Oscar, so Yodomi doesn't have enough to do it himself, and Sladen will survive, but that was the Fairy Fire, that was the stick charges, and now your Wind Ranger really doesn't have a whole lot to work with regen-wise.
Yeah, she really doesn't have a place in this lane right now. It's just a lot of damage that Sladen kind of has to eat while Oscar is just working towards his levels. Still more or less a successful lane. I think the big issue right now is Mr. Jeans is doing a really good job versus Dark Mago.
21 and 12 for the Death Prophet, so Kunkka is not having a fun time at the moment. He's, much like Angel, not really in a terrible situation, but now you see he is actually doing it. Oh! Ooh. Okay, Mr. Jeans, I mean, just the slightest bit of extra damage there and he would have had it. Dark Mago, though, gets back home, heals up, bottle refilled, and he's back in the lane, but that would have been so big for Mr. Jeans. That could have just straight up given him control of the lane if he'd have been able to find that pick.
Yeah, it would have been TP off the deck, it would have been a dead Kunkka, and it would have been Mr. Jeans just rolling this lane even more so. Once Dark Mago is level 5, this lane does get better because you can do that. You just torn for the ranged, and then you get every single acid in the creep wave. But still, Mr. Jeans is doing a very good job. He's mode nothing to say right now. He's just bullying his opponent as much as he can. Dark Mago's definitely on the ropes way more than he has been for a lot of this tournament on Kunkka.
The good news on the NoPing side is that they do have this ward up on the high ground in that west side jungle for a couple more minutes. So when we start seeing some of those rotations, they are going to have a lot of vision into that triangle, but for now, it's not going to be massively useful. I mean, Dark Mago will see when Mr. Jeans rotates over, so he'll know when it's sort of safe for him to maybe push into the lane or over to his own side camp, but it'll be later on when we might see a little bit of aggression coming out while that ward is still up. But for now, not a lot in the way of rotations. You see Yodomi and Sladen really the only ones on the move here, as Yodomi does get in to spot out this stacked camp, but this is a level 3 Abba. He straight up cannot find this kill by himself. Sladen's going to be okay long term.
Yeah, and Sladen's just trying to do a good job. He knows that Dark Mago has gone for a slightly slower build-up, so doesn't care about taking the bounty away from his teammate, but that's where NoPing are definitely, I think, suffering. At least their supports are in these lanes. They've just been counterpicked a little too nicely from the Hustler side. Oscar's doing a good job, but yeah,
trouble. Trying to wind his way through the tree line, and Panda's coming over. Stomp comes through, connects onto both. Nicely done. Angel, that would have been greedy to turn around there, yeah. So they're going to give it a, oh, I was going to say they're going to just sort of give up on it, but yeah, with Dark Mago coming in, it's got the haste rune. They're going to try to push onto Divide to get the X into the Torn, and Dark Mago will find the kill. So, well, I said it was going to be greedy. If he'd have known Dark Mago was coming in, maybe he does turn around a little bit earlier, but either way, they're still able to find the kill. Meanwhile, down bot, look at Oscar. He is just in on that bottom tower, and that actually may be a little bit too far. Mr. Jeans now TP's in. Silence comes down, and yeah, that Timber is going to get a little bit punished there. So maybe trying to do a little bit too much for Oscar, but He saw his teammates find a kill up top. He was hoping to take advantage of that momentum, and it doesn't quite pan out the way he wanted.
Yeah, and I'm surprised they didn't make the call on that TP a little bit sooner because they had vision of the Death Prophet there. I don't know if Mr. Jeans had time to tuck himself away, but it definitely felt like Oscar was a little bit behind in his get out time. But still, this gives space and it gives time over specifically to Dark Mago, who now is level 7. This is where the Kunkka just starts to free farm more or less uncontested, and that's where once he gets a few more levels, he can very simply rotate to any lane. It's the power of the Kunkka. You're always able to make plays across the map, and it's something that you always have to be concerned with because you use your Exo bottom. It just means that now Mr. Jeans is at the same time going to fulfill that farming role for his team. He can't really afford to get aggressive on the towers necessarily. Although this DD might change his playstyle a little bit, it still feels like now you're playing a little bit of a 4v5 while you wait for your teammates, and I don't think anyone's coming bot to help you, Domi.
He's just got to go it alone for a bit. Oscar, though, well, maybe playing a little bit more cautiously after getting sort of the slap in the wrist the last time around, but okay, never mind. Nothing cautious about this. They're going straight in for the kill. Sladen is here to help out, and Yudomi will be taken down. So the second that they realize, you know, nobody's TPing in to help this one, they go for the kill. And now, speaking of going for the kill, Devi is going to get caught as well. There's the X into the Ghost Ship. Panda gets the kill with that smack, with the extra damage from that Astral Spirit. And NoPing, okay, able to strike across the map. It is the two supports that they take down, but it frees up more space for Dark Mago. Meanwhile, Oscar can keep the push going down bot, and now Angel... Well, this is a bit of an interesting scenario here. He remains in the lane because Dark Mago is really taking a lot of the farm in the jungle, so the Ember Spirit's kind of been almost sacrificed to this point. His net worth really is not that bad, but he's not quite in that top section just yet.
Yeah, it's the skill build, and ooh, that was a sick silence from Mr. June's mid. They were looking for a setup there, but they can't take it anymore.
Silence into double siphon, pushes him back. Nicely done. Sladen, I don't know. Maybe he could still look for the shack. Oh, okay. Stomp comes through. Maybe for a second Dark Mago would try for that, but they don't have the Ghost Ship back up. So it would have just been X, Torrent, Tidebringer, which maybe that's enough to get onto the low health supports, but it's not going to get you in onto Mr. Jeans. So they decide probably not worth a potential fight there, especially since Mr. Jeans didn't have the mana for the Exorcism at the time, but he does have it up.
Yeah, and figuring out how Mr. Jeans makes his next appearance in this game is going to be incredibly important, especially because now that Angel's got quite a few levels underneath his belt, he can start to show up to a lot of these engagements because, again, it takes one X, it takes one Echo Stomp, and then suddenly you're getting chain disabled more or less to death. He doesn't want to leave that top lane just yet, just because it is really the easiest place for him to farm, but that's also where, again, the skill build kind of comes back to bite him. It's really annoying to farm when you don't have Flame Guard up yet, so he's definitely playing towards a slightly earlier timing, but just means he needs to find those active kills.
While Oscar continuing to be a nuisance down bot, not quite the Beastmaster that he was playing in Game 1 in terms of pushing power, but his presence in this lane is always going to allow his creep wave to push forward, and you see Yudomi just on constant kind of patrol duty. He's got to be down here because you don't want to leave Oscar alone to push this lane out, but there's nothing Zaba can do right now. He can't stop the Timbersaw. They would have to TP in multiple heroes, and the second Oscar sees that, he just sort of dips out, and NoPing have successfully wasted a lot of their opponent's time, but you have to do this. Otherwise, your tier 2 is just going to get sort of burned through relatively quickly.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Oscar needs to do. This is the biggest problem in NoPing's draft, and it's that their tower push is pretty bad. The best way for them to get these early objectives is put Oscar in front of a siege creep and keep the siege creep alive. That's why he's making this play bottom, and that's why Yudomi is actually moving towards the Timbersaw to try and aggro these creeps away. He's trying to make Oscar's job as difficult as possible. The biggest loss right now is D2 Hustlers feel like they have to displace another core on the map to deal with this Timbersaw, because as soon as that happens, then Oscar very simply walks over to the mid lane, and then now mid is the true objective they want to take. Bot T2 is not what they want. They want to take mid.
Want mid, but well, if Yudomi's the only one who's going to be here to try and stop Oscar, they'll certainly take the bot tier 2 with limited resistance. Meanwhile, up top, Angel, well, still just sort of keeping this lane relatively steady for himself, and this is something I think D2 Hustlers are going to have to become more and more concerned with. As you mentioned, that skill build really limits his initial farming potential, but you can't just let him free farm like this even at a slower rate, otherwise he's going to start hitting pretty hard the later we go. And you see a bit of an emphasis from that D2 Hustler side. 3 heroes are up here, they're going to try and take that tower away and kind of force Angel to move elsewhere on the map. But while they're pushing top, you do see NoPing starting to make their way mid. Oscar has rotated over, they burn through Yadomi's ult pretty quickly, but not really sure there's going to be much more to it than that. The Torrent is going to keep Mr. Jeans at bay. And, well, Shackle. Oh, okay. That's a nice Shackle. Power Shot comes through as well, but that's not exactly a teamfight setup maneuver. The X, though, does come out onto Monster. They're trying to see maybe if Monster has an itchy trigger finger on that Ravage, but Tide is going to be much more disciplined than that. He will hold on to it for now, but starting to turn into quite the party in this middle lane. Both teams have about 4 heroes here, and the 5th heroes are not far from the area either.
Yeah. It's unfortunate the big reason they don't get that kill onto Oscar is because Monster isn't set up already, and that's where the biggest drawback of D2 Hustler's draft is that they don't have lockdown. They always need to start the fight off with a Ravage, a slow, they need to get on top of their opponents, get their one stun off, and then they can start to actually expect killing people. The problem is that with NoPing's lineup, if they sit the Elder Titan or the Wind behind someone and they're able to get on top of that creep wave, their creep clear is incredibly good. They can push out these waves for a very long time, and that's where D2 Hustlers need a much more focused effort when it comes to getting these pushes underway, and something they haven't been able to do thus far. Like mid,
Slayton's getting hit up, but now they got the X onto Yuma. There's going to be the ghost ship coming in. They want this play. Stomp comes in as well. That is perfectly timed as well to make sure that the sleep is not immediately removed, and Yuma just gets blown up. Divine Llama gets solo picked by Angel up in the top lane. Now you see Monster TPing mid, but at this point, I'm not really sure how much they can do. The Ravage is there if they want to use it, but the Gush is going to be enough instead to take down Slayton. While that happens, though, Oscar runs down Yadomi on the back half, so there is no sort of defensive presence now for these heroes to work with, but at this point it feels like the fight's sort of starting to break apart. I suppose if you're D2 Hustlers and you're looking for sort of bright sides here, you got Slayton and you kept your tier 1 tower up, but that is sort of 2 or 3 heroes going down in the exchange.
Yeah, and they're getting dragged around the map. All of the 3 heroes that were going to try and take out that top objective are now forced mid to simply push in the creep wave, and it's a very obnoxious setup that they really haven't figured out a way to deal with yet on the D2 Hustler side. They haven't found an opportunity to use this next exorcism. They're very afraid of actually get caught by NoPing's disables, and rightfully so. They have so much damage to follow up just is a simple X torrent. It's X Torrent into Chakrams, into Power Shot, and not many heroes can stand up to that. And that's why I think Monster has found his home finally in the mid lane. Problem being is everybody, all hands on deck, now need to come towards this top tower, and this is a lot of time that you're giving to NoPing where they get to envelop the rest of the map.
Yeah, they're just going to take so much space on the map right now. You see Angel already making his way down bot and closing in on that Maelstrom for himself. So the damage output of the Ember is going to take a step forward, and if you're D2 Hustlers, at least you should get this tower. They will be able to bring it down, but it's a bit of a heavy commitment. And actually, what happened here? Monster is kind of caught in no man's land. He was rotating top like he wanted to be involved in that push, but the tower's already gone, and he moved so far out of mid that NoPing were able to take it down. That just feels like they weren't sure. Monster wasn't sure whether his presence was needed or not, and that is largely going to just turn that one into a trade.
Yeah, and they have to TP at least 2 or 3 heroes top to make sure that that push actually happens, meaning that they have to smoke towards the mid lane. And now they do have a good setup here. It's timed very nicely with the cart, so this mid tower is now going to be the big fight for NoPing. They have Glyph as well, so this is the big engagement.
They want to fight into that Exo, though. It's going to be tough for them, but see them moving. They're looking for the Torrent. It does connect onto 2. Oscar, meanwhile, is sort of pushing his way across. The tower, though, already got taken down, but now they get that Shackle in. There's going to be the Earth Splitter. Nice play from Monster, though, to try and break this up with the Ravage, but still a lot of damage being taken, but it's Oscar who will fall first. Panda's now in trouble. That's a nice 2-man silence coming in, making sure Angel is not going to be able to contribute any further, and well, there was the risk. Not sure if they wanted to fight into that. They try and go for it anyway with what looked like a good setup, but now they're getting heavily punished. Archmago's caught. He's going to try to TP out, but Yadomi will bring him down before he can get away, and Angel just jumped to a Remnant. in the river there. Not really sure if he's looking for a fight or if he just wanted to be there to support Sladen, but that was fantastic for D2 Hustlers. As you said, the timing sort of works out perfectly for them. They get the Exo down, and NoPing, they felt like they had to give it a go, and the fight goes pretty rough for them.
Yeah, and they just tried to do too much with too little there. The stomp lands onto the Death Prophet. They land the Shackle into Earth Splitter. Unfortunately, Monster hits a 4-man Ravage, and he's just simply able to walk it in. They were definitely a little bit too close to their target there, and as soon as that save happens, it's the power of the Abaddon. As soon as that stun doesn't connect onto Yudomi himself, it means that the Death Prophet gets shielded, she gets miscoiled, she gets 2 siphons off, and then suddenly you are in full retreat, as well as, I think, Oscar going down way earlier than he expected. He really just timber chained in with 0 stacks and got a full exorcism in his face, and I don't think he was ready to die nearly as fast as he did. So it was a little bit of a misplay there from NoPing. They're definitely overestimating their damage. I think they're going to be a lot more careful taking their fights now, but that's the problem with Death Prophet. If you get a building after committing Exo, that's great. If you win a fight and get a building after committing Exo, it makes this exorcism cooldown feel like instead of 150 seconds, it's only 90 because your opponents aren't actively contesting you on the map.
Just double up on the sort of objectives that you want. That's exactly the way that the Death Prophet wants to play. And now Mr. Jeans, you see him maybe leaning a little bit more into some of that team fight oriented play with the BKB being built up as Sladen gonna get silenced, slowed as well by the enchant. So really no way out there as Divine Llama is going to be able to get the kill. And well, Yudomi, I mean, he sees Dark Mega. There's not a whole lot to be done here, so the Kunkka will be able to get away. But now if you're NoPing, you gotta try and, I don't know, mount a response or at least try and keep some of your heroes safe now, because that momentum is slipping. Pulled up the net worth and experience graphs just a moment or two ago, and their entire lead kind of got wiped away. So I don't think they want to do anything too drastic, but they can't really afford another loss like that. Otherwise, they're going to be very much on the back foot and on the defensive, although that may already be the case with Mr. Jeans already looking to push again. The Exo is popped up in the top lane, and that does force out the Glyph. We see some rotations coming in now, and that's enough to stop the push, but D2 Hustlers aren't actually backing away from the area. They may very well want the fight. They've got the Ravage back up. They just need to find a target.
Yeah, and Angel, he's playing on the edge here. That silence almost landed for Mr. Jeans. That would have been incredibly important, but okay, this is now NoPing's time. Exo's been committed. They only got a building. All of their heroes are still alive. They can definitely reassert themselves elsewhere, but I think NoPing are actually struggling quite a bit here to take a lot of the control back. You take a look at their vision. They only have 1 ward down right now. It's to try and scout out heroes making that effort towards the bottom lane, but yeah, immediate smoke up. They want the engagement.
We're going to be looking for it. Dark Mega will lead the charge. They do have eyes on Monster. That would be a tough kill for them, but it's really the only person that they see at the moment. But they're going to try for the longer wrap around here, trying to keep it going. Smoke is still on them for a few more seconds. Dark Mega, meanwhile, getting the X onto Monster, but he has the Ravage. This is just going to be so complicated, but they're hoping that this wraparound can catch other heroes, but they went right into Yuma. Yuma's going to lock down Sladen first. There's the Ravage out onto 3 or 4, and this is all going to fall apart. Oscar, once again, just getting torn through here, trying to Timber Chain his way out of there. Panda, well, that's a nice play in with the Earth Splitter. That's going to do a fair bit of damage, but Angel, he is dangerously low on HP. He needs reinforcements. The Ghost Ship will fly through, though, at the perfect time as Dark Mago cleans up 3, and now the fight may begin to shift. Monster's going to get disarmed, slowed up by that Chakram. The X marks the spot, is ready to pull him back in. Angel, meanwhile, doing his best to dance away from the, away from the Death Prophet, and he does get away. Mr. Jeans can't keep him locked down. Angel then gets the kill onto Monster, survives on the tiniest sliver of HP. I think the rum buff may have been keeping him alive for a little bit of that fight as well, and NoPing put together the perfect fight that they needed. It started out, ET, looking dangerous for them with that long sort of secondary wraparound, but Dark Mago saves the day.
Yeah, with that boat coming in so late, they also finally got their target. They didn't want the tide for so long there, and Yuma, even though he gets the immediate kill onto Sladen, provides them with that objective. And as soon as Yuma is stuck in that fight, once he's out of his tree, he doesn't have the shard yet, so he runs out of gas. He's suddenly a tiny with all of his spells spent, and completely scouted out. They immediately got the vision control. Everything was already placed down by Pandaboo, and they completely lose track of of that fight. I think Angel also somehow living on, I think, 50 HP and then kiting Mr. Jeans away from helping Monster at all. There's so many aspects of that fight that went so well for NoPing when that engagement looked terrible as soon as that wind went down and the Ravage went off, but they were able to just kite through everything. And again, it's the BKB timing. You get your BKB done on Kunkka, you cast it so late on the fight, you tank so many spells for your allies. Him and Oscar really carried the brunt of that fight. They did so much damage.
Oscar, we mentioned in that team fight that NoPing sort of mishandled, got outplayed, and he charged his way forward, took more damage than he was anticipating and couldn't get out. This time I think he was a little more conscious of some of that burst, because you did see him pulling back that little bit earlier while he was still nursing a little bit of an HP pool. So maybe figuring out what his limitations were after that first death and then trying to play around it. And now this is something that's going to be so incredibly obnoxious for D2 Hustlers to deal with. There are 2 halberds out in the field, one for Oscar, and actually looks like the Kunkka did not actually finish his. It's still the Sange for right now. So my mistake. Only the 1 at the moment, potentially 2 depending on where the Kunkka wants to go, but all of a sudden, if your Tiny can't right-click in these fights, that's kind of all Yuma's built for right now.
Yeah, the biggest problem right now is that the line is getting much thinner. You need to wait now for Yuma, I think, to get his BKB before you make any crazy expeditions anymore. We're probably going to see them smoke up, possibly with this Exorcism. They still want to get aggressive on these buildings, especially with Mr. Jeans finishing up a BKB of his own. But with the Silver Edge, you need to find a pickoff before you go into these buildings. Otherwise, what has been very successful for NoPing in before, they adopt this split push style where one person goes bottom, Angel gets an incredible amount of farm, and then they pick and choose their fights. And I think doing this is also really good. They don't feel confident enough to walk at those objectives just yet, so force your opponents into Roche being the objective. Only problem is you are playing versus Elder Titan, so it's very easily scouted out by NoPing, but do they actually want this fight? I don't think they do. I think they're going to let it go.
And look at how far forward Monster's playing with that Ravage at the ready, so he's just going to act as that sort of interceptor, and they don't want to push into that. They have to let Roche go. Yuma's going to be able to get the Aegis into his hands. Now down bot, Mr. Jeans, he TP'd in, looking to try and lock down the Ember. And honestly, if they get that with Mr. Jeans are already in and Yuma coming in after him, that would have been a massive kill. But now, NoPing get the chance to regroup, and Mr. Jeans is still down here with no TP. So this is going to get a little bit ugly. If they can catch up, do they go all the way in for it, though? No, they don't. That would have been big for them, but at this point, they're just going to focus on the farm. They have no way of knowing that the Death Prophet was there by herself, and you are still dealing with a Tiny with 2 lives, so they would rather sort of avoid that confrontation for the time being with Yuma currently missing on their vision.
Yeah, and that's where this is most likely going to become more of a control Aegis than it is actually them getting aggressive on the NoPing side of the map. I don't think you want to play around your map whenever you don't have Exorcism, so you are going to see more or less Yuma just finishing up his BKB, and it's still a massive timing for them. The only problem is, again, NoPing are so efficient at the split push, and your lineup is terrible at catching them. It's the one drawback of these heroes that they were able to pick up for themselves, and something that NoPing are really starting to adopt in their playstyle. They're really not giving D2 Hustlers the honest fight that they're looking for anymore.
A lot of sort of hit and run, guerrilla-like tactics for NoPing right now, and it's working out. They've been able to reestablish a net worth lead here, 2k ahead. They just took the tier 2 tower down bot, which frees up this outpost, and I mean, over on that D2 Hustler side, it's just so much of their lineup has to mobilize if they want that fight that it's pretty predictable when they're actually trying to move. So you're not really going to catch anybody by surprise, and NoPing have, in almost every circumstance, the more mobile lineup at the moment. So it feels like it's going to be tough for them, but they will continue to look, and they are going to run into Panda. That's going to net them 1 kill, but that is really all they're going to get. The scan does reveal that there's another hero out to the east, but don't think they can really catch up unless Dark Mago suddenly decides to push back in for the fight, and I highly doubt he's going to do that right now. Meanwhile,
Yeah, but
some
look
creep
at the
cut.
creep cut. Yeah.
Oscar
They gotta look
doing
hard
it.
for him.
They might actually be able to get him if this blink from Monster... Okay, never mind. He does blink, but it's just a little bit too late, and Oscar should be able to get away, but... Well, that was a risky move. If Oscar gets caught there, he's pretty tanky on the Timber, but far from unkillable, but with that play paying off for them, that's even more time bought. D2 Hustlers at this stage, you see them They can't even be on their opponent's side of the map right now because none of their waves are really pushing out. The only wave even looking remotely favorable for them is top, and top lane is sort of the farthest region for them to push out onto. But you do see Yuma making his way forward. They see Panda again.
They got him.
We'll be able to take him down again, but again, that's Panda. The cores are just going to be able to walk away from this and get themselves out, buy more time to farm. So if the ET has to be sacrificed there for NoPing, they're going to do it.
Yeah, and the sickest thing from NoPing right now is all of this is more or less being done on intuition. They've got no wards, they've got one sentry, and D2 Hustlers are spread really thin. The best hero for them to find these pickoffs is simply Yuma, but Yuma is also the best person to push down these objectives when you don't want to commit exorcism. So it feels like the Tiny is having to do 2 or 3 jobs right now, and he's really only able to successfully contribute to one of those efforts, and that's where again, every single time they're trying to push in these waves, you see NoPing heroes splitting out on the map. They're constantly playing in 3 lanes at the same time, and that's where they've still been able to maintain this net worth lead and even grow it further.
They do lose the tier 2 this time, though, so D2 Hustlers are able to get that, and that's a tower that they take without having to use the Exorcism as well, which is going to be noteworthy as Angel's got to get away. Nicely timed that. Wow, that really seemed like they should have had him that time. The avalanche goes down, but Angel's able to get that last second maneuver. Jumps away with a sleight of fist into the Remnant, and that was the closest I think D2 Hustlers have come to this point since they sort of picked up this Aegis, which is now only 30 seconds away from being reclaimed. So they really haven't gotten to do a whole lot here. I mean, they got that tier 2 tower mid, but not really sure if that's equivalent trade-off for the Aegis sort of being timed out on them, but it's all that they can really get right now. They don't have the ability to just instantly group up and go for a play. If they do try for a 4 or 5-man smoke, NoPing are gonna see it coming just based off of how sort of slow this lineup is for D2 Hustlers and how much time they would then be off the map.
Now, the only issue for NoPing right now is they have not converted themselves over to playing with buybacks. Of course, Aegis is reclaimed, but that's where D2 Hustlers, they find one pickoff, they kill the Ember Spirit, no buyback, they kill the Kunkka, no buyback, and then the game is still blown wide open. We saw how fast Angel was able to take objectives previously, and it looks like Dark Mago.
That avalanche is a little bit off. Dark Mago turns around for the X. His teammates, though, they're kind of looking for a fight. They want in onto Yodomi. Wind Ranger trying to jump in there as well to help out. There's going to be the stomp into the shackle. The Abba is running out of time on the borrow time. He will be taken down, but now Yuma's into the fight. The Ravage is going to be deployed. Oscar gets brought down, but Angel was able to pop the BKB, but he's running out of HP, so he's not going to be able to do a whole lot here. Dark Mago, meanwhile, actually stuck in that, and now his BKB will be popped as well, and he should be able to fall back. He's just been holding that so long in these fights. Speaking of holding it, Mr. Jeans now going to activate his, while Angel, yeah, he went back in there. Not entirely sure what was going on. His teammates were trying to fall back, and now they're actually going to get run down and finished off. Dark Mago, once the BKB wears off, does get finished. That's all the cores dead on NoPing's side, and as you were just mentioning, you find those heroes, yeah, there's no buybacks.
And this is a nightmare. You actually are just going to lose this mid racks for free, and if you're able to defend top racks, that's going to be some crazy defense from your Elder Titan and Wind, because as soon as they show, they're next on the chopping block. This is gonna more or less be 2 free racks for D2 Hustlers. I don't think there's any fight NoPing can put up. Maybe once Oscar's alive, they can try, and they're trying to be annoying, but this is the Tiny. Here you go, 2 racks, right on kill.
Middle lane cleared out. They'll rotate top as we really just thought they would. There is going to be a TP in from Oscar, but he is not enough to stop this all by himself. Even with the Ravage down, even with the Exorcism down, they need more, but they just don't have it. Those other 2 cores are still gone, and yeah, not exactly quick on these sort of racks pushes, but they will get it eventually, and they take a pretty sizable degree of control here. Net worth-wise, maybe not. 6k up is not the largest we've ever seen, but 2 lanes of racks, that is going to be tough for NoPing to deal with. They do have some nice wave clear, but it is going to be constantly sort of pushing in against them on multiple fronts.
Yeah, NoPing, as again, they lose Oscar so early on in the fight. They're not playing like they have their Timbersaw, because they don't have their Timbersaw. All of that front line is now evaporated away from you. The Ember Spirit can never beat the Tiny in a straight-up one-on-one fight. They lose their scrappy mentality for 1 second, and now you're playing 2 racks down versus a Tiny. So there is a sole objective for him to take now. It's so simple for the game plan. If G2 Hustlers get this next Aegis, they push into bottom, they claim all your towers, and they get this easy reset. It's a good smoke, but Mr. Jeans is EXO in 14. This is a huge fight.
There's going to be the shackle coming in. Gale Force applied as well, and Mr. Jeans is just kind of stuck there. They're going to really need to bring him down right now, though. They do get the X, but where's the follow-up damage? Mr. Jeans is trying to get away with those spider legs, rooted up, though, by the searing chains as Angel's right in on the middle of it. Another shackle shot comes through, but there's going to be Monster in with the Ravage, breaking up that play that buys time for the BKB, and now Mr. Jeans is just going to turn it around. Angel already used his BKB. He's so far forward, his teammates are nowhere to be found. And NoPing, they just mishandled that one. They had to kill Mr. Jeans. If you are going to go in onto that Death Prophet, she has to die. If she doesn't, the fight is just entirely over. And we see that is very much the case now. They lose too, and there's still no buyback on that Ember Spirit. So he's gone for 50 seconds. And at this point, they might as well just go for the win. They can't get the racks right now as there's still towers in that bottom lane, but they can certainly go for the tier 4s. And it's up to NoPing now to try and mount some sort of defense to stop him, but the Ghost Ship's not up for 15, and the Ember's not up at all. Big stun onto Yuma. Gale Force coming in. Yuma's getting pushed back. BKB, though, is activated, and he's just going to fight his way through it. Sladen gets taken down, buying back immediately. The tier 4s continue to take a beating here. Dark Mego, however, does try to push into the middle of that fight, and his presence, along with the respawning or regrouping Oscar, is going to allow them to try and turn this to get a nice shackle down. Mr. Jeans will fall this time around. Now they're on to Divine Llama as well. They've got the X onto him. That was a nifty attempt with the Hurricane Pike, but he didn't actually pop it after the X had gone off. So he still gets pulled back, will be taken down, and well, NoPing, very fortunate that they're able to hold the line there. They just get in with everyone they have left. Their tier 4s are heavily damaged, but they're still standing, and they live to fight another day.
Yeah, they smelled blood in the water. D2 Hustlers definitely felt like that was going to be their easy win, but they also played not around their timings at all. They didn't have Exo, they didn't have Ravage, something that I was going to praise them on. The entire reason that mid-fight goes so disgustingly well for them is because they get to cast Ravage and Exo off cooldown. There's maybe 5 seconds in between those spells coming up cooldown, and they just get to use it 100% efficiency, but that's also where they definitely outrun those timings, and they give NoPing a shot.
See what they can put together here, but starting to run out of time on this sort of numbers advantage. The Death Prophet's coming back up in just 15, and the Exo is going to be back up shortly afterwards. So if they're looking to do something, they need to do it now. And unfortunately, the Roche timer isn't quite cooperating with them. 25 seconds before that's back up. You see Sladen just staying in the pit to scout it out, but by the time Roche does respawn, D2 Hustlers are going to be back at full strength, so they need a pickoff, and they do find Yunomi. Borrow time is going to be activated, but now Yuma's pushing in. There's going to be the Avatos. They've taken down Sladen. The Ghost Ship, though, will still fly through. So Yunomi does fall, but now there's Mr. Jeans back into the fight. Exorcism will be popped. Good Earth Splitter out from Panda, doing a little bit of damage now, trapping Mr. Jeans up on that high ground, but he's not actually trapped. He uses the spider legs, quickly getting himself back down. Now he's going to try and track down Oscar as Oscar gets his TP canceled, and he will fall. NoPing, and they just lost any chance that they had of going after Roshan, and now the Elder Titan is going to get picked off in the pit.
Yeah, and right into the pit. Now it's going to be Angel's going to try to be obnoxious, but he's got to be so careful himself. Yeah, they're going to go for this fight. No BKB on Tiny, Exo fading away, no Ravage. This is another big timing for NoPing to bounce back.
It's a good move from D2 Hustlers to recognize we cannot really just afford to stand our ground in the pit right now. They have to back away, so we'll do exactly that. Angel, meanwhile, that's a lot of damage, so he's going to have to take a trip back to the fountain, but while he falls back, Dark Mako pushed in. It's going to get a little bit risky for him as that Lotus Orb has to be applied. Mr. Jeans, though, look at him just charge forward, even with the BKB down.
Oh, Yuma.
He's incredibly confident as Yuma tried to get on the back line. Did get the Avatos down, but he is going to get disarmed, so he's not going to be able to dish out a lot of damage right now as he gets pulled back by the X into the Torrent, into the Ghost Ship, dropping low. Half HP. Can they save him? Yuma trying to fight his way through this, but he's rooted in place and will be taken down. Yuma will fall. Panda, though, does get taken down in exchange, but at this point, NoPing still trying to fight. They're going to be able to find a second kill. Yunomi will be finished off as well. Monster, though, over on the other side of the engagement, brings down Dark Mako. He does have buyback, though, and he will spend it. Does he have a TP at this point, though? Not for 5 seconds, so his teammates have to operate without him. And Angel, very low on HP himself. He may want to try and clear out, which means he kind of has to leave Sladen and Oscar to fend for themselves, but honestly, they're doing a pretty good job of that. Mr. Jeans now is the one who has to pop the BKB and TP home, so the board effectively gets cleared out. Roche is sitting at about half of its HP, and, well, can NoPing, can they do this? Angel's sort of making his way over there, and if Dark Mego comes in as well, maybe they could sneak this before D2 Hustlers get back into position.
Yeah, I think just barely they have enough damage to do this in a reasonable time. They do scan it out as well. Okay, interesting pause. But that was exactly what they need. Of course, it was very expensive for that hold. That's 3 buybacks now unavailable to NoPing, but that's where they had to push. That was their opening. They had no BKB on Tiny. That's something that they have to focus on. They have to focus on for the rest of the game is getting this BKB out of Yuma early on in the fight and then finding the opening with the Earth Splitter, with the Shackle. Because if they're able to force them in that 4v1 situation, really, you can only hit one target on the Tiny. Of course, you do have that cleave, but if you're able to just beat into him, you can definitely beat up the Tiny. It's the Rockman by himself, but that's also where I think D2 Hustlers are going to sync up their Exorcism and their Ravage just one more time, and then the game is even more on that razor edge where no buybacks. You get picked off, you're dead, you're gone. And that's where the end game is really starting here. I think that fight goes so poorly because Monster hit a 0-man Ravage there to start off that high ground fight, and they were able to claim back the high ground with Yodomi suiciding for that ward, but that's all he really needed to do. That was his sole job. I think now, though, again, it's NoPing that are just continuously fighting back, and now with Aegis and Aghanim Shard here, they're not out, but they need to execute these team fights so well. If they get the early BKBs out, then they can convincingly win these fights. The problem is that D2 Hustlers need to give them those opportunities, and they are growing at the exact same rate, even not more, and they have buybacks to play with. It's still a very scary game for both of these teams.
NoPing are at least in a better position now than they were the last time around. Angel has enough money for his, and Dark Mago may have just spent his buyback, but if he's the one who picked up the Aegis, then he is still going to have 2 lives to play with. So they're not going to be in quite as weak of a position, but it is still going to be limited from really everyone other than those 2 cores. Oscar's is on cooldown, Sladen's as well, and the Elder Titan used his in that previous fight too. So your 1-2 punch is going to be sort of up and running. Everyone else is going to have to be insanely careful, but well, they can get Roche. That is going to be a step in the right direction no matter what, and they should be able to get it here. No one's even close enough to contest it, but actually, they give the Aegis over to Angel. That, well, okay. Now it makes a little bit of sense, because the second he has that Aegis, we start seeing him buying out for that Ags. So that maybe spreads out the extra lives not quite as much as putting it on the Kunkka, but if Angel can get this Aghanim Scepter, then you are going to have quite a bit more damage and maneuverability for your Ember Spirit to work with.
Yeah, it gives them an opportunity to actually take out Devi Lama as well, who has been so obnoxious in these fights. He's getting halberded more than Yuma has so far, just because of how much damage he's actually able to output with the Mindbreaker and the Pike. He just does so much if he's able to actually beat into NoPing's lineup, and it's been the bane of Oscar's existence thus far. But I wonder how D2 Hustlers now want to get themselves back into this game. Of course, there is still just that bottom wave left. They have Megas in the other 2, so split push is no longer the most effective option for NoPing to go for. I wonder how long they're actually going to dodge out these fights, or if they're just going to look for it. I love the Blink Dagger purchase by Yuma, by the way. It was exactly what he needed. It helps him do his role so much better. And even though it's a late purchase into the game, I feel like it's been what has caught NoPing that much more off guard. I think the Silver Edge is great, but in this game, I think his role is just that much more important. It's just not enough.
The Silver Edge alone wasn't quite doing it the way Yuma needed it too, so the Blink Dagger is going to help. We now have a Refresher Orb up on that Tide, so you've got the potential for that double Ravage play, and double Ravage with the Exorcism is just not really something that I think NoPing want to fight into, but may not have a choice. We'll see if D2 Hustlers can find the fight. You see them pushing heavily into the east side jungle here, trying to find somebody, but no target sort of immediately revealing itself. Meanwhile, Dark Mago, well, the quick buy shows a Rapier. That would require several thousand more gold for him, but maybe a glimpse into maybe the mindset of NoPing right now in terms of their thinking of what item can really get us just what we need on the Kunkka to really turn the fights around.
Yeah, and you can already see how much more of a positional game we have shifted towards, and barely TP's out on Sladen in the bottom lane. But all that matters is getting this jump. They use an entire smoke just to place this Tinker Ward on the bottom tier 2 tower, so that way, if they do see someone cheeky playing behind, they get that pick. They know how important one hero being off of the board is for D2 Hustlers, and at the same time, NoPing realize how important this final fight is going to be. Even if this ward gets very simply dewarded in a few minutes here, it's still crucial. They just need that little bit of a warning, and they can react with their heroes, with their setups. But if they're caught off guard, everything crumbles so quickly for them.
That is actually interesting. The Kunkka hit 25, went for the Tidebringer cooldown over the Ghost Ship fleet. So Tidebringer on a 2-second cooldown, that is a lot of damage that he's going to be able to dish out. But now, Angel.
Oh, Angel.
Well, there's the Aegis gone. He holds the BKB for the second life, but that is not the way that they wanted to spend that. First life is gone, and, well, I guess now you know where D2 Hustlers are, but not really sure how much that knowledge does for you. This tier 2 tower in the bottom lane is not really a great defensive position, and NoPing really aren't even going to give it a go. They are trying for a pickoff though onto Yodomi, but he's got the borrowed time, so the second they hit him up, he's going to pop that ult, and do they really want to keep this one going? Angel is still here. It would be a nice pick if they could find it, but there's going to be the threat. Angel gets taken down. He doesn't have money for buyback, and now the entire plan from NoPing kind of just falls apart. They have to fall back.
Yeah, Yodomi, of course, you trade your life away, but he's done such a good job of contesting NoPing on their vision. He suicidally walks towards that ward spot. He just starts hitting it, and that's all the pressure in the world. And because he's granting this vision over to his teammate, Yuma finds the jump. He gets the pick on the Ember Spirit, and this game becomes very awkward. Now it's up to D2 Hustlers to poke and prod the high ground. It's something that they're still very hesitant to do, but this gives them full control of the map now. It feels like right now they definitely could force their opponents into a corner if they really wanted to, but they're definitely taking the calm, measured response. They're actually taking the low and slow road. They might even wait for the next Roche. They're very scared still.
To be honest, if they knew that the Ember didn't have buyback, Monster refreshed the Ravage, and Mr. Jeans has the Exo, so if they had confirmed knowledge that there was no buyback available, I think they might just try for it in the bottom lane, but obviously they don't know that for sure, and by now it's a little bit too late. You could still try for the push, but the Ember is starting to get down into those sort of lower timings, but
they're waiting. They're waiting for 20 seconds. This is so smart from them.
Torrent catches Yuma, the disarm comes in. They're going to be able to turn him back for now, but Mr. Jeans has popped the Exo, so he's going in. And that tier 3 tower, it's just getting absolutely destroyed. That's going to force the glyph, though, from NoPing, and Ember's coming back up. Now it's sort of your moment for D2 Hustlers. Do you go for this, or do they play it safe and back out? They've still got the Ravage to work with, but the Exorcism down to about a third of its duration, and it looks like they will play it safe and back off.
And, of course, they're playing with the idea that the Ember Spirit has buyback there, but that is so smart from them. They purposely wait before they finally have the respawn available. They wait till about 20 seconds, where now they start hitting the tower with 20 seconds on your Ember Spirit's respawn. If he had buyback, does he buyback? If they immediately push whenever Ember Spirit's dead for 60 seconds, they force him into a much easier situation. Even though he didn't have the option available to them, it's such a nice and neat idea from D2 Hustlers to make that forcing play, and if anything, they get glyph. So now there is no reset. If they don't play this perfectly on NoPing, they are going to get megas. There's no two ways about it.
Dark Mago, though, is starting to get close to the money that he needs for that Rapier, so we'll see whether or not he's... Yeah, okay, he's serious. There we go. Rapier purchased up, and Dark Mago, well, can't really hide it. Yeah, he just walked directly into vision there of that... Hellbear Smasher, so they know. So Dark Mago suddenly becomes kind of target number one. Get that Rapier out of his hands, get him off the field, and a lot of the teamfight strength here for NoPing is going to fall apart, but the Kunkka has not been an easy kill in most of these fights. 7, 4, and 9 is maybe a little bit higher than we expect to see for Dark Mago in particular, but they have not been able to just sort of get in and get out quickly onto him.
Ooh, Yodomi, he got one shot. Well, that'll happen.
Yeah, that's what happens. Rapier Tidebringer, that sucks for Yodomi. God, I think we've all been there before. You're just minding your own business, and all of a sudden you're dead off the cleave. So, a pickoff that, I don't know how much it's going to matter. It's a relatively short timer on the death, and Yodomi does have buyback available, but the fact you take him down at all there opens up opportunities as Oscar... Wow. That was a very aggressive push forward, and that's a problem. That Aeon Disc getting popped, that extended cooldown is not fun, but Oscar at least creates, I suppose, a distraction so his teammates can continue to farm, but now, if you're Dark Mega, you just purchased a Rapier. What else could you really farm for now other than maybe a second one in case you die?
Yeah, I think that's your best option. The other option would be to very simply go for something like the Boots of Travel, but I also think buyback is going to be incredibly important for him. Of course, having buyback while you have a Rapier is awkward because you just lose the slot, so even if you buy back, you're not going to be at full strength immediately. But that's where you also have an Ember Spirit on your team. I think getting the Rapier passed over would also be a pretty good situation for them, even though Dark Mago is definitely keeping his team in it with, oh my goodness, he has so much farm on him. He has so many last hits right now.
Approaching the 700 last hit mark in this game. So, I mean, he just kept farming throughout, no matter what was happening. If his team was up, if they were down, if they were defending their base, he has just been trying to be as efficient as possible. And there's a reason why he's still at the top of that net worth chart. Meanwhile, for Angel, he'll be able to grab himself up an Arcane Rune. He hit level 25, so he's got that Remnant talent to work with, and see what they find. Once again, though, their best target, or most immediate target, I guess, is Monster, and I don't know if that's the one that they really want. They're going to look for somebody else. They're going to jump their way forward. They got eyes on Yuma there. That would be big if they could take him down, but they've got to be able to actually finish him off. The BKB will be popped, and Yuma is trying to get himself away. Meanwhile, Sladen trying to take down Divine Llama off to the side, but there's going to be that Ravage out from Monster, connecting on everybody. The Ghost Ship, though, will fly through defensively. Angel is still dropping, and he actually gets hit by the second Ravage. He is dead, but buys back immediately. That means, though, that Dark Mago has to get away. This Rapier is all important. They cannot afford to lose it, but Mr. Jeans just continues to give chase, blinking his way forward even. Dark Mago, somebody's got to help him. He needs backup here. He is just getting absolutely chased down. Oh, Panda gonna try to help out. There's the TP. Can Dark Mago get away? He's just barely able to make it home. That is absolutely big. The rest of this fight is honestly going to be acceptable losses, I think, for NoPing, as Panda is going to go for his own TP home and will not make it, but you had to keep that Rapier up and running. Your heroes who are now dead do have their buybacks available, and the buybacks actually may need to come out because Roche is back up in a few seconds, although D2 Hustlers, they scouted it a little bit too early, and now they're walking away from it, so they don't see that Roche is back up now.
Yeah, it's still their moment to press the issue. If they can get on this bottom tower, they still know there's no glyph. It shouldn't be available for maybe another, I think, 30 seconds, but I think that's going to be enough time. They're still scared of this Gunka. Once he has a creep wave too, it gets that much harder. But they're going to ride the mid wave in. They're not even caring about bottom.
This is going to be so risky. That glyph did come back up for NoPing, so...
There we go. Perfect. Yeah.
Forced it out. That was easy for Yuma, so... They force the glyph. They'll back away. Meanwhile, Angel, that... Yeah, maybe feels like a bit of a necessity there. The Aeon Disc finished off for him, so... Might be able to avoid the problems that he ran into in the last fight. To be honest, in that last fight, the only reason that he gets sort of locked down like that is he did get clipped by both Ravages, which I really feel like he's going to be able to avoid at least one of them moving forward, whether it's through the BKB or the Aeon Disc, but you want to be sure that you have that defensive capability. In the meantime, though, D2 Hustlers have pushed into the Roche pit. The Gale Force, though, is really going to disrupt this as Angel just jumps straight into the pit. They get the root down onto Yuma. They're trying to get through him before the BKB, but he is going to be able to pop
early
it.
BKB.
There's the Earth Splitter, though, coming in. Roshan dropping low. Yuma's going to be able to get the Aegis, but his HP is dropping pretty rapidly, so they're going to at least be able to get through that first life. Meanwhile, the Cheese is actually still in the pit. Devi is going to be able to pick it up, but how do they handle this secondary fight? They are having Mr. Jeans push forward. Going to be able to quickly get onto Panda. Dark Mago is the next target up, and again, he has the Rapier. They cannot afford to lose him. Angel's trying to make his way over, trying to help as Mr. Jeans ran out of time on the BKB. He's going to try and get himself up in the air with the Yules. Is that going to be enough, though? Still dropping low. Dark Mago, though, is dropping himself. They need to be able to recover the... Oh, no! They will recover nothing. Angel gets picked off. That is a big play from Monster in on the back end with the Ravage as well, just to make sure. And now they know the Rapier has to be somewhere in there. Yuma picks it up, and that might just be the game. There's no buyback on Angel. There is one on the Kunkka, but without the Rapier, I don't know if they can really hold this.
Ancient's exposed. This game is going to get incredibly close. It's just going to be Yuma. He can hit anything he wants. He doesn't have an Aegis, of course, but the BKB is also coming up in 13 seconds. I think D2 Hustlers might have just done it. They find the initiation.
Another Dark Mago coming in, connecting onto two. No BKB is active. Dark Mago dropped low. Toss throws him in the air, and he will be taken down. That's it. No buyback left. GG will be called, and D2 Hustlers Takes a hell of a lot of effort to get it done, but they will find the win, and they'll tie up the series at 1-1.
Mr. Jeans, man, he has been tanking so many spells. He was kiting so many heroes for so long in those fights. He did such a fantastic job of peeling everyone away, as well as just in the pit, Yuma having the decisiveness, saving his toss for the Ember Spirit, stealing everything. He didn't get the cheese, of course, his inventory was way too full, but he gets the eggs, he gets the Aegis. If he doesn't get those, if Angel gets that steal, the game is much different. Angel gets the Aegis, we're suddenly looking at a dead Tiny, he has to buy back, TP into the fight without BKB. It's just Yuma in that just incredibly important moment, able to make it happen. And Mr. Jeans, man, what a clean Death Prophet game. Every single time they didn't have BKBs on NoPing, he was running down absolutely everyone, as well as Monster. I think Mr. Jeans and Monster just put the team on their back. They did exactly what they needed to do. Some of those ravages were just incredible from Monster, clipping everyone on the tail end of their BKB, so they think they're fine until they get stunned up, and then a second one comes, and then suddenly this team without any stuns is completely controlling the NoPing lineup, and NoPing, they just run out of control. Just what a crazy game from D2 Hustlers. They played so well.
We talked about with that Death Prophet how much the execution was going to have to be perfect for them, and as you said, Mr. Jeans and Monster, they absolutely deliver. You look at the stat lines there, 4-1 and 21 for the Tide, 6-1 and 22 for your Death Prophet. So very, very few mistakes on their part, and well, at the end of the day, yeah, maybe NoPing had the lineup that was a little bit easier to execute and push into the team fights, but D2 Hustlers pull it out with unbelievable timing. The timing, the coordination between all of their players was about as close to perfect as you could ever possibly get.
Yeah, and I think it was just too much pressure. And that's the power of this Tiny. Your safe laner is suddenly a playmaker. He's someone who's putting pressure on the map, who's suddenly able to instantly kill your supports. It's like he's the better version of Sven, especially with how contested that hero was in the previous patch. I think going into game 3, I don't know if any team is going to feel like they need to ban out this Tiny, but I think they're definitely considering whether or not they need to actually value a ban on it, and whether or not the team with first pick is just going to send it again, because this Tiny hero is so potent. I think everybody needs to be looking at him.
Yeah, so far the formula has been pretty straightforward in this series. Pick Tiny, win the game. There's some extra steps in between, but that is the trend to this point. So we have NoPing taking game 1, D2 Hustlers take game 2, which means this series comes down to just one final match to determine which of these two squads will be advancing to the upper bracket final. So we are going to game 3. We are going to be stepping away for a brief moment here, though, as we get ourselves set up, but we'll be back in just a few minutes for the start of that game 3 draft. So stick around. We'll have the series finale coming your way in just a little bit.